Hi, welcome to Access Tribe. Today I'm chatting to Emma Todd, who is the founder and CEO of MMH Technologies, which focuses on data systems, blockchain consulting, and events. She's also the chair of the Canadian Blockchain Consortium's mining committee. So I'm going to have a discussion with her about the blockchain mining ecosystem and also how this looks in Canada versus the rest of the world. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Emma to introduce yourself. Emma, over to you.
Thank you, Krista, so much for having me. My name is Emma Todd. I am the CEO of MMH Technology Group. I'm also the CEO of MMH Data Systems. It's basically one company with two different things that are happening underneath it, and I absolutely love it. I've been in this space since 2016, and every day has just been absolutely amazing. Not always a joy, but I absolutely love what I do, and I think I'm absolutely grateful and blessed for the people that I work with. I initially came into the space from banking. I've been in banking for about 15 years and absolutely loved it. And then I was kind of bored and wanted to go into fintech. And my friend, Amber Scott, who is an absolute badass in this space, she said, "What about Bitcoin?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "What about blockchain?" I was like, "I still don't know." And that was in 2016. So she invited me to a conference that she was having on with Michael Perkman from Shapeshift, and the rest is history. I fell in love with it, thought I really need to be doing this. And I left banking, was like, I cannot go back. And now that it was kind of like, the Matrix, red pill versus the blue pill. Now that my eyes are open, I really cannot go back to how things were before. Everybody thought I was crazy because in 2016, nobody knew what Bitcoin was. Nobody knew what blockchain was. It's from like a very small group of people. But when I went to that conference, I saw that PwC was there, saw that Ernst & Young was there, I saw that KPMG was there. And I also saw that Homeland Security was there. And at that time, there weren't that many blockchain and Bitcoin conferences. So they actually flew to Canada to find out more. And I thought, if these people are here and I consider them to be somewhat knowledgeable, maybe this is where I want to be. And it was great. I did something I don't necessarily advise that people do. I built the car while driving it. So I was figuring things out as I was going along. And I started without a business plan. I did a business plan like 2 weeks later. I had a business plan. I created my company and logo like 3 hours before I went to my first job. A company had heard me say at that conference, I absolutely love doing this and think I need to do this forever. And they literally hired me on the spot. And so I was like, "Oh, I have a job. Oh, you want me to go to Vegas? All right, let's go." And so right before I hopped on the plane to Vegas, I created like my website and a logo, and then I had to have it all redone because really I didn't know anything about that. But it's been really incredible.
I was just going to say, just to take a step back on that, though, your background, your training is actually in digital marketing. So how did you transition from digital marketing to finance? Like, what was that first step? And did you think that you would end up in finance?
So it was marketing and strategy. So it was all things marketing. So the whole gamut. So finance, working in a bank, you're acquainted with a lot of the things that have to do with money and funds and really kind of getting things done, and most importantly, the people who can get things done for you. And so I like to listen to them talk, and that's how I sort of gained more knowledge about that. And so a lot of things that we do, when you're approving things in marketing and when you're doing strategy, when you're looking at creative briefs, when you are looking at developing the product, it really comes down to money and figuring how things out. So it wasn't that hard of a transition. I still do it today for clients.
So that's interesting. So you basically were learning how to put things into context for people. And is that then what grew your interest in the technology piece, like the actual fintech piece?
No. What grew my attention was that when I sat that conference, it talked about using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And I found that very interesting because just the week before I had sent money to someone here in Jamaica, and the fees were outrageous. The fees were like $80 or $90 or something crazy. And it wasn't for a large amount, but it wasn't, I won't get into the amount, but the whole point was I then heard someone say beside me that they had sent $500,000 in Bitcoin and it had cost them $2.36.
Oh, so that's interesting. So that was the hook that got you in.
That was a hook. That was a hook because it turns out that the actual terminology for it's called remittances. Remittances is $1 billion business, almost $1 trillion business if I'm not wrong, regarding like a lot of people send money to their family members, to their friends in different countries, and a lot of migrant workers do that, a lot of regular workers, a lot of immigrants, right? And so I was like, how can we help these people keep more money in their pockets, right? You're working very hard, you want to send money home, and you don't want it to cost an arm and a leg. And so I thought Bitcoin can be a really great exchange for this. Yeah, it's got some growing pains, as in, at this point, you have to teach people actually how to open up a wallet, receive it, things like that, and then they have to be able to, exchange it. So it does have some growing pains and some things that we need to solve for, but overall, I like the premise of it. And once I discovered that, I thought, oh my God, what else can it be used for? And I discovered that it can be used for other really great things. But really what got me into it was that financial piece, which is helping to save people money and put money back in their pockets.
So you've kind of in the finance world then, you've got this hook now where you're like, this is the potential of Bitcoin. That's actually amazing as well that it got you that quickly. Because I feel like my journey was more like I knew about Bitcoin for a very long time and just didn't get how revolutionary it was. It took me really like until last year to go, oh my God, this has been sat underneath my eyes the whole time. What was the, like, when you conceived of your company then, what was the problem you were trying to solve? So you kind of knew about the Bitcoin space, you had your marketing background, your financial background. Like, what did you see that was missing and what was the inspiration for you?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So in 2016, when I first started, the person who was speaking at the conference, I didn't know who he was at the time, was Andres Antonopoulos. And he said to me, we
Oh my
need,
God.
everyone's jaw drops. And I was like, I didn't know who he was. I'll tell you a funny story offline. I was just like, I'll just tell you right now, I didn't know who he was. And I had met him at the speaker dinner and I was like, he was such a nice guy. And I was like, you know something? I'm going to come and hear you talk tomorrow. So, you'll know at least one friendly face in the audience. And he was like, okay. People at KPMG, and they're giving me this look like, oh my God. And then he gets on stage, everyone stands up and they start clapping. And I'm like, oh my God, he's famous, isn't he? And they're like, yeah, he really is. Anyway, so he had said to me, we need people. We don't care what you do. We need marketers. We need people in strategy. We need like accountants. If you're here, we want you. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And in 2016, the people who were in the space, they were just building stuff. They didn't have they were not as sophisticated as they are now. And I remember after someone hired me to help them host an event, I was sitting in the audience listening to these guys talk, and it was fantastic. And these are people who you can't get near these days, and they were just so willingly like giving me their information. And I said to one guy, and I'm actually meeting with him again in December, and I said to him, "Okay, you've got a great idea. What's your plan to get it out there?" He's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "You've built a great product. How are you going to let people know about it?" He's like, "Well, I built it. They will come." And I was like, "Oh, no, my friend, it doesn't quite work that way." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You have to have a strategy. You have to have a plan. Like, what's your marketing? What's your hook?" And he's like, and he goes, "You said you come from banking and you do this. Can you help me?" And I was like, "Oh." So the funny thing was I had named my company My Marketing House, MMH.
I was going
And
to
I
ask
hopped
you
on a
what
plane,
MMH stood for.
actually where it came from. My Marketing House, HAUS, hopped on a plane, went to Vegas. And then this guy asked me, he goes, "Well, can you help develop the strategy?" And I literally was like, I literally just named my company, filed the paperwork and everything, and already it's out of date. And so I went into helping them with marketing and strategy. And a lot of companies followed suit. And for a while, for a good year and a half, I was the only person in the community that had banking experience that was doing marketing. And so I understood how bankers thought. I understood them from a strategy point of view. And so people really wanted my help with understanding how A, to market, B, how to talk to these bankers to try and help them understand where they were coming from and see if they wanted their services. And so it was really a good time to be me. It was kind of like drinking from like Niagara Falls, like instead of like a fire hose like Niagara Falls, trying to figure everything out. But it was really,
Give it a
it
Canadian
was just
reference.
insane. A Canadian reference, yeah. I'm full of tons of Canadian references. Wait till I start with hockey. It was really, really quite interesting and a really good time. I don't think every time was different, but for me, 2016, when I look back, it was really, really a good time. And the people now are just absolutely amazing. And the interesting thing that's absolutely just killing me is that these guys, and trust me, I would go into a room, like I started going to these meetups, and I would go into a room and it would be 500 people. It'd be 495 guys and 5 women.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then grew to 6, 7, 8, 9, and it started growing more and more. And these guys were lovely, and people always ask me what drew me to the space. It was the financial aspect, and also the fact that these guys, they were geeky, and they were like, we don't care who you are or what you're doing, as long as you can help us, as long as you believe in the promise of what Bitcoin and blockchain can do. That's all we really care about. And I was like, okay, I can get behind that. And it was just something to
So I have a
see. It
question.
was absolutely amazing.
Were you still doing your day job while you set up MMH?
Nope,
Oh, so you just
nope.
went cold in. And did it just grow organically then from like client one, you got another referral and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so remember that little meetup I was just telling you that I would go to? So when I went to these meetups, also you have to remember at heart I'm a marketer. I found out who was hosting the meetups, and this lovely guy named Sunny and his friend Geeson, and I absolutely just adore them. And I started just showing up, and I was like, okay, your guys need help, and I would just help them do things, and they were like, she is always here. And what happened was this meetup grew and grew and grew, and it became the number one. I mean, if you think of something like really just, that just happens, we're having it at Mars Innovation Center. It was a full stage production. CBC started showing up, news media started showing up, and it grew and grew and grew until the fire marshal told us, you guys, it's too big, it's too big. And then Mars said, you guys might want to go somewhere else. So we then started having our meetups, which were scheduled every 3 months. We started having them at the Sheraton Convention Center. They were getting that big. And people would fly in for them from all over North America. So they're flying from New York, they're flying from Vancouver, they're flying from San Fran. And because I was helping to organize it, that's how people got to know me. And I would always stand up because I would always wear red. Normally, if you see me, or if you see my pictures, I'm wearing red or orange or something that stands out. And also, I have like really big hair. And not to mention, I was the only Black woman around. Like, that was it, right? So people then ask me, what do you do? And they was like, oh, yeah, we can use your services. And it just grew from there. And then people would say, okay, you're providing a slant that we never thought of, or you're giving us a banking view that we've never had before. Can you come and talk about it at conferences? And, I look back now, but, like I think my first gig that they paid me for was speaking at Silicon Valley. I mean, that's your first gig. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? They find me out to San Fran. It was absolutely great. And then, from there in New York, and I got invited to speak in Europe and Malta, and it's just sort of grown from there. And that started at like the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, and it was absolutely amazing. Just getting to interact with all these great people, and I'm proud to say, and these people, some of the smartest people that I know. They aren't smart in everything. They have a definite laneway. They're smart when it comes to technology and this and that, but they're absolutely brilliant, and I'm learning from them constantly, and I absolutely love it.
Wow. So you got interested in the mining space then because your focus has been a lot on mining in certain respects. Like
Yeah.
why was that? Like what was the transition there?
Okay, I love that you asked that question. So while I was learning about like crypto, and everything. Everyone kept talking about mining, and I didn't understand what the heck they were talking about. I tried to read up, and it was just a little bit mismatched, and I just wasn't understanding. So, I mean, once again, I got away with a lot, right? So, I decided to have a conference and in New York around consensus and invite all the top miners to come and explain it to me. and and they showed up. I'm not kidding, I really did. I was like, I'm having a mining conference. And then I was like, I want all the top miners, and the word just got out. And then I remember as late as the day before, Jan Kapek from Brains, he's like the CEO, he messaged me, he's like, I hear you're having a conference. I'm like, yes. I don't know who you are, but yes. He's like, I should speak. I'm like, you should? He's like, I should. I'm like, okay. Everybody was like, and they all showed up. Like, I remember Bitmain was like, you should have us sponsor your conference. And I was like, why? And they're like, because we're the #1 mining, machine creator. And I was like, are you really? We're just, yeah, I was really hard on everyone's egos because I just didn't know anything. But at the end of the day, it was absolutely great. And it was, I'm not even kidding, yeah. And based on my conferences, Bitmain went on to actually host their own conferences. They started having them like 2 months after mine. And I loved it so much when I heard about everything that I started just mining on my own and loved it. And then I decided, okay, people then asked me questions and asked me for assistance, and I started selling machines. And because I had really great contacts, because I knew all the CEOs because they came to speak at my conference. And then from there, people would be like, okay, can you help us set up spaces and things like that. So that's what I do. And then
so
from there, you start mining.
So that's part of MMH's business now, is essentially if somebody wants to start mining, you can provide consultancy in that capacity.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's one of the
so
data systems. Yeah, and that's actually more fun for me than anything else. It's a little bit stressful right now, but
yeah.
like I really do love it. I really do love it. It's absolutely the people are great, and just what I'm learning, and I feel like I'm changing the world, and I couldn't see that before. Yeah.
So on the mining piece, given that you've come to it from, I guess, like a slightly non-technical background, could you give a very brief description about what mining looks like in the Bitcoin space, what that actually means? And then also, could you touch a bit on why Canada is such a good location for mining? Because there's a ton of mining activity here. And there are reasons why Canada lends itself very well, but I don't think that everyone knows that. So if you could just sort of, give a bit of a brief technical overview and then a geographical insight.
So I'm going to be very non-technical, because technical is going to go like it scrambles people's brains, and I want them to actually stay with me. So what Bitcoin mining is creation of Bitcoin. It's you're using computers, specialized computers. In the beginning, you could use any computer, any laptop, but as time went on, to create Bitcoin, you need to these computers need to solve puzzles and riddles and things like that. And to do that, you need it was easier in the beginning, and as years go on, the difficulty increases. And as the difficulty increases, it becomes more difficult to solve them. And that's why you now need specialized equipment. So you can't actually use a regular laptop or computer. You specialize mining equipment. And there you can have one, you can have two, or you can have many thousands of them. And they are generally put in a server room, or you can put it in your garage. And from there you can then hook it up to a mining pool that will help you compact the number of people that are actually mining. And so they can. So sorry, hang on a second.
Is the lizard back?
Sorry about that. It was family. So they didn't realize I was out here doing this, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, the lizard is not. I thought you. Gone.
Just for context for people, that Emma had a lizard running around the wall behind her earlier on.
I
thought it might have migrated to your keyboard.
Okay, like it was a little bit too much, but like literally the lizard. I was in the shower this morning, and I was like, oh, lizard right there, like in the lining, and I was like, oh my god. I never showered so fast in my because I'm like, I'm in here, I'm not coming back, right? I'm like, we're not like, I'm like,
The shower
anyway,
now
yeah.
belongs to the lizard. Anyway, back to
The
mining.
shower now belongs to the lizard. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so you said to for you doing mining on your own, it's fine, but you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck. You're going to be able to win the difficulty prize if you actually work with other miners and other equipment. And so you have a mining pool, so they call it a pool. So when you have a pool, the likelihood of you winning the difficulty contest is likelihood higher, and at that point, then you are actually able to get your fraction of that Bitcoin amount that you're supposed to get. So, and it's using proof of work, which we probably won't get into because you've got proof of work versus proof of stake, but that's how
So,
it works.
so
So,
it essentially, like, is that like a lottery syndicate? So, rather than buy one ticket, you have a group of people and you kind of buy lots of tickets, and then if one of you wins, you split the proceeds, kind of concept.
oh, that's an interesting way of putting it. I think I might start using that in the future. So it's kind of like having a lottery ticket, but you have a better chance of winning the prize if it's everybody in your company that plays or a
Right,
group of you that play as opposed to one person. So if one person plays, you can win. It's really, really hard. But the bigger the company, the
right.
bigger the group of people, the bigger the chances of you winning. That's a fantastic analogy. Thank you, my friend. I'm going to use that from now on. Everyone understands lottery. So yeah, so
Unfortunately.
that's really yeah, right. Unfortunately, yeah. That's the thing though. When you start in Bitcoin, you stop playing those things. You start to believe in yourself and what you can achieve, as opposed to the percentage, which is like nigh on impossible. You can go out and get hit by lightning two or three times before winning the lottery. But that is essentially what Bitcoin mining is. And so the thing with Bitcoin mining is that as the difficulty increases, you need more and more efficient equipment to make sure that you can actually hit your goal. So, and remember, at the end of the day, even though we want to change the world, you still need it to be profitable. In order for it to be profitable, you need two things. You need equipment that is very efficient, and you also need good, like cheap power. So if the power is expensive, but you have cheap equipment, it doesn't help you because at the end of the day, you're probably not going to be making any money um, mining. But if you have cheap, like moderately priced equipment and cheap power, then at that point, you're doing good things. So at the end of the day, miners have to figure out. I'm getting too technical, aren't I? But miners have to
No,
figure
not
out.
at all.
No, okay. So I start to go off on this, and then and then so at the end of the day, miners have to figure out how can we be more efficient with mining because we in the beginning people were just like, okay, we're mining. Then as years go by, it's kind of like when you're born and you're growing up, you're focused on one thing, but as you get older and you become wiser, you have to worry about things, to worry about the environment and things like that. So we started to create better equipment that can solve computational puzzles a lot faster than they could say in 2017, 2018. So the mining machines these days are a lot faster and a lot better than what they used to have. And also to add into that, what people or what companies do now, what we do now is, if it doesn't make any sense for us to mine, we'll shut it off. You can shut it off and we can redirect the power. So one of the things that they did, and I absolutely love this, is Riot Blockchain. They are one of the largest mining companies in North America, and they're operating in Texas. And in July, August, it was very, very hot, and so the mining company ERCOT was like, "Listen, we need you guys to shut down." And here's what they did because they wanted to be able to redirect the power to homes and businesses that need air conditioning and things like that. And so what Riot did was they actually shut down and wait for it. They sold the energy that they would have used. They sold it back to the grid so that they could then, power people's homes. They sold it back to the grid, and guess what? They made money. They actually made more money than they would have mining. I think they made $10 million in a month versus 2 million that they would have made from mining. And so,
Huh.
listen, there's always a way. I know it's quite shocking. It's quite shocking. And so I met a gentleman from ERCOT a few weeks ago at a conference, and he was talking about this because I was like, oh, is Texas a really a good place to mine? And he's like, let me show you why. He brought that one out, and he goes, and we work with mining companies to show them how they can be more efficient and how they can actually make more money and how they can, while helping people at the same time. And I was like, that's absolutely fantastic. And so a lot of companies were already doing that, but they kind of formalized the process and things like that. And so it's been really, really good.
So why does Canada lend itself to mining then? Though? I mean, there's a fair amount of mining operations here. Then is there a sort of a kind of environmental aspect to it, or what's the reason why Canada's a good location,
Yes.
or is it regulatory?
Canada's an absolutely so I'm going to go off on a tangent here. So Canada is absolutely excellent in my mind, obviously being Canadian. It is the number one place to do it simply because Canada is surrounded by water. We have more water than I think we've got 80 or 90% of the lakes in the entire world. And Canada is really good just in terms of hydro. That's where we get our electricity from, right? Hydro is renewable, it's good for you, and that's why it's really great. And it's affordable, generally speaking. Also, guess what? If you're not near hydro, guess who we have? We've got Alberta. Alberta's got oil. They're doing all these things there. One of the things that they're doing, and I know people don't necessarily like oil, but the oil companies are here to stay. But you know what they also have? Have you ever seen those movies where you see those oil fields in the distance and they see the little gas coming out from it? It's called methane. Bitcoin mining has found a way to harness that methane gas and use it for mining. So you no longer have that gas that's just going out into the atmosphere. We found a way to harness it. And so we've found a way to make that good for you. It's clean. We're trying to make it clean. And so we're trying to do all these really great things for the environment and for people in general. And we are getting our hands slapped every which way because of the narrative that is out there. And the narrative out there is damaging and incorrect. And it's saying that Bitcoin miners are majority of them are using a non-renewable, and we're really bad for the environment. And we've told them time and time again that the majority of mining is actually using a renewable or clean, and we're doing our best to, make things good for the environment. Or equipment is newer because as I mentioned to you before, older equipment does not work as well. And so if you're not making any money, if you're just generating, trying to solve those problems and you're not actually winning, then why are you using that equipment? So as time goes by, we're using more and more efficient equipment that is actually better for the environment. And that is one of the challenges that we're having a hard time getting across. And what we're seeing right now, and I'm a little bit passionate because I just saw some emails yesterday, what various provinces are doing is they're actually shutting this information. They're putting moratoriums and not letting Bitcoin mining companies come into their provinces until they do a feasibility assessment to see how good or bad it is. And we're providing them all this information, but like generally speaking, it's like a 12 to 18-month moratorium. And so we're seeing that one just came down from Manitoba yesterday.
Oh, really? Because I saw something similar from
last week.
Right, and I saw that Quebec had said something about they weren't going to sell electricity to mining companies, which to me, this is a really bizarre concept because when you buy electricity, nobody comes to you and says what you're using your electricity for. And it seems just a wild idea that there's this sort of arbitrary thing that if you're using it to run a tumble dryer or, a TV, that's okay. Yeah. But if you're using it to mine Bitcoin, i.e. create sound money, that's not okay. It just
boggles the mind. It gets better. You can have the very same warehouse that is being used to, and say you split it in half. It's equipment. You split it in half. You use half of it to mine Bitcoin. Use half of it to generate like cloud. To use it for the cloud. Guess what? They won't bother you. So if we had one warehouse space using the same amount of equipment, similar types of computers, but I owned one for Bitcoin mining and Amazon owned the other half, Amazon would be fine, but I'm in trouble. It's the same kind of equipment, same kind of power used, nothing's really changed. And so what we're seeing as a
result,
are
these discussions happening at a provincial level? Or are they happening at a federal level? Like, what's the kind of sense in terms of the regulatory environment? Ah, okay.
They're happening at both levels. We're running into some challenges. Bitcoin mining or crypto mining in general is sort of not held in the highest regard. And part of it is because, and just in the from a federal perspective, they don't view crypto as anything good. And part of it is because of what happened with the blockade in Ottawa earlier on this year, earlier on in 2022. Some of those factions were being paid through crypto. And so they want to be able to shut that down. And so that's, like it can be used for a force of good and a force for not so good. It is what it is. It's a unit, right? It's a unit of currency, of things like that. And so you can't necessarily pick and choose, what is good and what is bad. When it was being used to help Ukraine, and when the Ukraine minister put it out there and said, we will take crypto, it was an amazing thing. It was used as a force for good. But, this happened in their mind being used for a force for evil. And so they really want to shut it down. But that's the thing. When you have a unit of currency, it can be used for good. It can be used for evil. A good example, you can be using it to save other people, to give money if they have hurricanes and you want to donate to the Red Cross. At the same time, you can also have it being used for the mob and for cartels and things like that. So you really have to understand that it's not the actual unit.
It's a neutral tech. Yeah, it's a neutral technology. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, for sure. So you joined the Canadian Blockchain. I guess first of all, can you talk about briefly what the Canadian Blockchain Consortium does, and then kind of talk about your role in chairing their mining committee and what that committee is actually doing?
Okay, so the Canadian Blockchain Consortium, it is this really amazing nonprofit corporation that works with all the blockchain and crypto companies in Canada that want to join, and helps to advance the people's knowledge of it. So it works with provinces, it works with the federal government, it works with people, it does education, it works with universities and colleges to provide education on what blockchain is, and that's absolutely amazing. And it was it's managing director is Claudia Carrington. She's absolutely amazing. And when I met her in, I think, 2019, she was like a breath of fresh air. I had become a little bit jaded. I'd been in the space for about 3 years, and I was like, I know you kind of get a little bit jaded. And she just kind of came on, and she was like, that's what we're gonna do, blah blah blah. And she was like so excited about it. And I thought, really? And she was in Alberta at that time, and she still is. And so she did something I vowed to never do again. I got on the plane and went to Alberta for a conference. Because I'm like, I'm not gonna kid you. I do love Toronto, and I love Canada, and I love Vancouver. And I was like, what's happening in Alberta? And I went there, and I freaking loved Calgary. I loved it. And Edmonton, everybody was just so amazing, and I had way too much fun. And then I was like, okay, I got to go home now. But now I go all the time. But they were doing some really, really good things. And I was just absolutely impressed. And I was like, okay, I need to be a part of this. And so Cleo made me or invited me to be on the board of the CBC, and they're really doing some really amazing things. And initially I was the head of their fintech committee. Makes sense. I come from banking.
Right.
And then I saw an opportunity in a year, and I said, Claire, hang on a second. Claire, I think you need a mining committee. And no, I cannot do both. I was like, I really can't. It's just like it's a lot of work. And so I left the fintech committee and started the mining committee. And I started with a different flavor. But with the fintech committee, it's just a handful of people, and you talk about what's happening and what you want to do to like make fintech obviously better. But with mining, we made it a little bit different. We invited every single miner in Canada to join. Every single miner joined. It's absolutely free. We have a forum, and we actually make sure we read a disclosure at the beginning of it, so people know that we're not operating as a cartel. We're just really trying to, get all the miners. Get all the miners in one place so we can talk. We actually have we have an open forum, like a Telegram chat. Just because miners generally tend to feel alone unless you have a group of people around you, and we want to let them know that they're not alone, that we're talking about all these issues, and you've got a forum for people to hear what you have to say. And so we have that meeting once a month. We have a committee of people that we talk about the agenda that we're going to put on the forum, but anybody can join the forum and talk. The committee, it's more closed, but we have that, and we're having some really good discussions. And last night was a really good one. At midnight, we're talking about what Labrador is doing and what Manitoba is doing, what Quebec is doing, and and it's funny because people are all over the world at this point. There's some people like we're in the Caribbean, people are in Miami for conferences, because wherever there's a conference, there's a Canadian, and we know this. We're everywhere. And yeah, and everybody was in the Middle East last week for a conference that had a really heavy mining slant, and we're all looking at ways that we can really help each other and help find a really good way to communicate to people and to the government what it is that we're trying to do, and how we're really not a threat. We're really trying to make a living, generate jobs where possible for everyone, and just really leave the world a better place. The challenge is that we're I don't want to say, how do I say this diplomatically? We're a bit of a competition for banks, and they don't like that. And they're not really our friends. We do try, but they're not really our friends.
Are you talking about that from a Bitcoiner's money perspective specifically, or do you mean mining is a competition?
It's all the same, because mining creates Bitcoin. Bitcoin then becomes a competition, right? So you need to find a way to really. I think it'd be great if we could all find a way to work well together, but I'm not sure if that's really going to happen. So we know banks have powerful lobbyists, and they have a lot of money, and we're trying to do the best that we can to sort of survive and get the word out there. And I think it's going to take some time. I do believe that we're going to be we're going to win this. We're going to be triumphant, but it's going to take a lot of work. And I always say that a year in crypto is about 10 years anywhere else. I'm feeling so about 70 right now. I'm feeling about 70 years old.
So does the mining committee essentially kind of brings everybody together to advocate, I guess, at a governmental level and try and make sure that there's an education process so that good policies are implemented?
Yes.
Yes, interesting.
That's
really
what
cool.
We try to do. Yeah.
And I know that did you go on the right? Did you go to the recent delegation down to Texas? Because I think there was a crowd that went there from the consortium. Were you part of that?
No, I wasn't. I was invited to be, and I was actually going to be there because I had actually facilitated the introductions. But I got invited to the U.S. Senate, and when you get invited to that, you go. So I went to that one, and that was interesting because that was actually the day that Nancy Pelosi resigned, and there were people just going, "We can't talk right now." And we're like, "What's going on?" But honestly, that was mind blowing for me. I just kind of sat there, and when you're growing up and you see all these things on TV, and you never really think, okay, I'm going to get a chance to go there or be part of this. And I just kind of sat there, and I had tears in my eyes. I'm not gonna kid you, I did. And then meeting senators in Congress, and you're like, what? I never thought this was gonna be a thing. So I apologized to Kalia. She's like, "You're not coming?" I'm like, I really can't, Kalia. I love you, but this. Right? And same thing with Don Tapscott. I love him. He had a conference, and I literally was like, "Don, I'm so sorry. I have to, I have all this stuff coming up. I can't go." But Krista, you get it. When you get an invitation, you go. And I have this fantastic picture, and I've got a cute montage of it on LinkedIn. But that was life-changing for me. Absolutely life-changing.
A milestone, yeah. You do a lot of advocating around the world, because generally you're speaking in a lot of different events. You're kind of, I guess, really doing a big educational piece. And you joined the World Economic Forum's Crypto Sustainability Coalition. I know you'd spoken at the forum before. Was that a transition from what you spoke about. So can you give a bit of context of what you went to speak about and how that kind of
Mm-hmm.
transitioned into joining that particular committee? And I guess what you're trying to advocate for within that committee.
As you can tell, the majority of things I do are generally around mining and sustainability, and really trying to show people that mining isn't the boogeyman that everyone thinks it is.
Mm.
And when I went to, so if you're from banking, you generally know about the World Economic Forum, right? And I had been in banking, and I remember one year looking at it like winter 2017, and thinking I'd like to go there someday. And I got the chance to go in 2019. That was my first year, I think. I think it was 2019. And holy crap, it was really interesting being around people who really just wanted to make the world a better place. I left there feeling bulletproof and 10 feet tall. I'm thinking I need to help everybody do everything that they can to. People were curious about mining. They were curious about water. They were looking at how they can help people in impoverished nations. And I literally felt that I am with people who don't necessarily care about money, but they literally just care about making the world a better place. And that feeling is absolutely incredible. And from there, I went on to do some work with the United Nations and speak at the United Nations headquarters that summer. And then it's really just sort of shifted my focus to, yeah, it's nice to, and I came from banking. So your initial thought is, hey, I want to make money and do good things. Well, for me, I wanted to do good things that can help people because I'm from the Caribbean. But then you go to, how can I help everybody worldwide? And it really is just astonishing. And it changes your focus. And I think it made me a better person, to be honest, because then I wasn't just necessarily thinking about me and my immediate family and my immediate group of friends. I'm now thinking about the world and how we can help women and how we can help kids and, like build a better world for the next generation. And that's what the World Economic Forum did for me. And I can't begin to tell you how euphoric I felt like every time I go there, how euphoric I feel. And then when I heard about the Crypto Sustainability Coalition, I was like, I need to be part of this. I really, really do. Because anything that has to do with crypto and B sustainability, I'm going around the world and I'm trying to speak about this. And I'm also speaking about this in Canada. And I'm trying to speak about this in the US too. And I'm really trying to drive the narrative. And if I can talk to these people in different stages, in different parts of the world, and take a little bit from here, take a little bit from there, and build my own narrative, craft it. Hopefully I can make a difference here in Canada. And that's why I joined it.
It's interesting. What are the ultimate goals with that then? Is it to kind of drive education in this space and figure out how to make things sustainable? Is that kind of like the beachhead, if you like?
Yeah, and also hopefully craft some roles and like just responsibilities and things that we're going to be looking at and things that we're advocating for companies in crypto to do, things like that. We have a meeting coming up. Yeah, a meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks. I'm so excited about it. Actually, no, it's not. It's actually tomorrow. I'm so excited. It's unreal. It's really unreal. I don't think I'm this excited about a meeting ever. It's like 2 days. I'm excited.
I have a question for you then on the mining piece then. Where do you see this going? Because obviously we're having this conversation in a phase that's quite difficult with the crypto crash for the mining companies and how they're financing their businesses and so on. But it's such an essential part of Bitcoin's mechanism. Well, it's one of the most fundamental parts. Where do you sort of see this going? Because Texas is obviously kind of trying to lead the way and they're very much making it a friendly location. So they're driving competition in this space now. Like, do you see more jurisdictions trying to adopt a kind of Texas mindset, and where do you think this is going to land in the next decade or so?
So I do think that some jurisdictions are going to try and follow the way and like lead and try to be like Texas. Like Alberta is definitely trying, and when they went to Texas, they got a chance to meet with Senator Ted Cruz. And what people don't realize is that, for example, I mean, we can all agree to disagree on certain politics that they may have in the US, Republican versus Democrats. But do you know that every month Senator Ted Cruz meets with people in the mining committee in the US every month? Not a delegate, he meets with them. So he understands And at the end of the day, this sounds weird, but everything kind of comes down to votes. So when you look at the number of people who use crypto and who believe in crypto, and look at the percentage of people in population, that's quite a hefty population in the U.S. And I break everything down in numbers. And then when you look at how many jobs it can drive, that's quite a number of jobs it can also drive in Texas. So that's why he's interested in it. And we're really trying to get Canada to that place. We obviously have a smaller population, and um, things are done a little bit differently here than it is in the US. We're not quite as driven by money as the US is, but if we can get to a point where people realize that we're trying to do good things, and we're really trying to be a force for good, hopefully that we can have more jurisdictions follow the lead, like follow what Texas is doing, what Alberta is doing, and make it just a better place in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess having a flourishing economy at the end of the day is doing good, really, isn't it? Because that provides jobs and a good lifestyle for people. So it's a great thing. It's interesting because I do feel like there's a lot of innovation going on in Canada. Like there's a real drive to kind of develop things and do really interesting things. So it's interesting to understand some of the regulatory challenges that you have and the advocacy, I guess, that you're having to do on such a frequent basis, both locally and internationally. That's fascinating. I guess I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to ask you that we're not going to have time to cover, but
you can do a part 2 if you need
to. I think we might have to. I'll take you up on that. One of the things I was interested in is when you were talking about your journey into the Bitcoin space. How did you build that community? So you started going to meetups, you kind of networked and you got to know people. And I'm guessing that you were there so early, really, in Canadian terms that you've kind of grown with the community. But could you talk a little bit about the scene in Canada and like how you got integrated into it and what's happening from a community aspect?
So it's funny that everyone thinks I got there so early, right? I think I got there late because a lot of my friends got there in 2010, 2013, and and then and then my friends would say, I told you about it in 2013, but you weren't ready to hear it. You were ready in 2016. So, I try to pay that back to my friends who in 2020 were like, oh, we should have gotten in early. You weren't ready then to hear it, but you are now. It's just one of those things. But the environment then, we had some absolutely amazing companies come out of Canada. They couldn't really stay in Canada because the framework from the governmental policies didn't really make it worthwhile to stay in Canada. And I talk about obviously Ethereum, and that actually ended up moving to Switzerland. So while a lot of people were Canadian, the company ended up moving to Switzerland just because the jurisdiction, just the policies were better. And then they ended up, and we see other companies doing that. So Cosmos, another company that I absolutely adore, and that was founded by Ethan Beckman, and
is that the rapper?
His co-founder's name is.
Is he the rapper? The one that did?
Yes, that is him. That is Ethan. Yeah.
I saw him perform at the
rapping.
Yeah, I saw him perform at the Blockchain Futures conference, and I thought they'd hired a rapper, and then he just had some side gig, and then I realized that because he made a joke saying, oh, I'm a rapper or something like that, and then I was like, oh, he's actually the CEO of this company. He was amazing. It was so funny.
He's absolutely amazing. The first time I met him, I just couldn't, he was just so, I'd never met anyone like Ethan. I still haven't, to this day. He was brilliant. I met him in 2016. Yeah, 2016. Before he started Tendermint, he was busy trying to raise funds for it. And he was just so brilliant and so, just, there's no other way to, he was just brilliant. And I was I literally went home, and at the time I added him on Facebook. I was like, I need to find out more about this guy. He was just so incredible. And I still think he's one of the top 5 people I've met in the crypto arena that I just absolutely impressed with. Just what he's doing and how brilliant he is. And I saw him at Thanksgiving. We were at Thanksgiving dinner for a friend, and he gave me a huge hug, and I was like, it was so good to see him.
But so is he based in Canada still then? So he hasn't moved jurisdictions, or is he also somebody that he is?
No, they hadn't moved jurisdictions, but he lives here. And he started a few other companies since then. but like they're like just absolutely doing really great things. And there are other companies that are doing good things too. So, on the mining front, you have Hive, based in Quebec, that's Frank Holmes and Gabrielle Ingvi, and then you have Hut 8, which is run by Jamie Leverton, and I absolutely adore her. She is brilliant. And it was founded by a good friend of mine who went on to start tokens.com that I'm on the board of. So really, we're doing really good innovative things in Canada. I just wish the regulatory environment was a little bit more hospitable to us because, yeah, we're making it work for the most part, but there's a reason why you see companies leave and go other places. And right now, what I'm seeing right now is that Dubai is trying to eat everyone's lunch, and they're being somewhat successful. So
What is
I
it?
know a
What
lot
is
more
it?
companies.
Could you elaborate on what
Go
is
ahead.
it about the Canadian regulatory environment that is not friendly enough right now? And like what would need to happen for Canada to get to a place where it was more attractive for some of these companies to stay?
So I think that in an effort because they don't understand it, they end up stifling innovation. They put in policies and procedures in place that stifle innovation and then make other companies go other places. Now, I will say, that they are realizing this, and so they are trying to work hand in hand with some of the compliance experts and legal experts here in Canada to make sure that they're not stifling innovation, but I do think sometimes it's a little bit top heavy in terms of trying to squash innovation. But I do like the fact that they are trying. They are trying to learn and they do consult. I love that they consult with the public. They say, we're going to put in this, like this regulatory framework. We invite everyone to consult on it for a period of 6 months. And then in 6 months, we're closing it. And then we'll evaluate, and then we'll actually put out the actual law. But so they are making effort to make it better, but it's a little tough right now. It's a little bit tough, and we're just going to keep persevering. But I do like that they're trying. I will say that they are trying.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much, Emma. I think we're out of time. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for the chat. Thank you for all the insights and, thank you for all the advocacy that you do and the fact that you're driving so much change in this space and positive change. So thank you for that. That's been great. And it's been great chatting to you. We'll do a part 2.
No problem. Let me know whenever you want to do that. I'm happy to be part of it.